Steady on my cheddar chaser, 247 me, I need this paper. Oh God, say man I know they fake on me, I feel so man I see you later.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a long while, I always say this, but as you can tell from the title, this is just going to be me giving a few tips for anyone who's looking to start a fragrance collection, or if you're on your fragrance journey, you kind of want to know the do's and don'ts basically of the game. Let's just get into the video. Okay, so I do have my notes on the notepad here. Okay, let's start with the first tip that I'm going to give today. The first tip I have for you guys is to start small. I know social media, it has a way of influencing us on things we want to buy. Obviously, I do want to point out first and foremost, I'm not here to tell anyone what to do with their money. It's your money at the end of the day. But I don't want you to feel pressured into buying big brands just because, you know, this fragrance influencer says this is good, or this fragrance influencer says I need this. I don't want you to feel pressured. There's no pressure. There shouldn't be any pressure when thinking about buying fragrances. I know a lot of the high-end brands, I know their prices can get a bit hefty, but with your fragrance journey, if you have to start small first, start small first. I remember when I first started getting into fragrances, I started getting into fragrances in like secondary school. I remember I used to carry my fragrances in my school bag and I would spray it in school. My first ever love, my first ever fragrance obsession was Rebel Fleur by Rihanna. If you know about that fragrance, then you know. This was my first ever fragrance love. But I've had this bottle for years and years, and this was my obsession at one point in life. Like, I used to take this to school every day. I used to buy this fragrance and this alone. This and Beyonce Heat. If you know about Beyonce Heat, every girl had Beyonce Heat back in the day, and that was one of my fragrance loves as well. My point of this is you can start small. It's okay. A lot of affordable fragrances also smell really nice. Like, I remember I used to spray this and people used to ask what I wear. I do still, oh, guys, this just brings back memories. This brings back so much memories. But guys, there are a lot of affordable fragrances that smell really good. Okay, there's nothing wrong with starting out small. My next tip for you guys would be samples. Okay, samples are a great way to either smell a fragrance that you're kind of interested in but you don't want to commit to a full bottle, or they're also a very good way to just have a whole bunch of portable fragrances. I'm gonna get my sample tray just so I can show you guys like how sample crazy I am. This is my this is my sample tray. As you can see, it's full to the brim of just random fragrances. So here I have Bond No. 9, I have a Clinique Happy, I have some Jo Malone here, I have some Parfum de Marly. So I would say samples are a really good way just to get, you know, a little vibe of the fragrance. Obviously there's different sizes of samples, but it's a really good way to just get a good vibe of the fragrance that maybe you're interested in, or a good vibe of a fragrance that you may have heard of, you may have been recommended. Samples are always a safe bet, as I said, especially when you don't want to commit to a full bottle. What I want to do for you guys, I want to give you a few websites that I use to get samples. Obviously check the websites out. If you are able to get your hands on a few samples that you're interested in, that's great. I'm gonna list them down in the description box below, so check that out. The next tip I want to give you guys is to go and smell the fragrance in person if you can. A fragrance can smell so good on someone else, so good in the air, but it can smell completely different on your own skin. That just goes to say, you know, fragrances react differently to everybody. Some things may work and smell great on others, but it may not smell the same way on you. Okay, so if you can go to the store and do a little sample fragrance smelling day, that's always good. And obviously, unlike samples, when you go and smell the fragrance in store, you don't have to buy anything. There's no commitment. You can smell it. If you like it, you buy it. If you don't, you don't. Another tip that I have for you guys is to follow fragrance blogs, follow fragrance vloggers, follow fragrance influencers, follow fragrance based content. That is also a really good way to keep up with, you know, fragrances that are popping for the moment, or fragrances that you may have an interest in. It's always good if you can find someone who you feel like has the same fragrance taste as you, because you can get a lot of good recommendations from that. I spoke to you guys about one of my favorite perfume vloggers on YouTube. Her name is Pauline Shah. I'm not gonna lie, she put me onto a lot of good stuff. So it's always good and great if you can find someone who has the same fragrance taste as you. A lot of the times they introduce you to new fragrances and they recommend good fragrances for you to try. My next tip to you guys would be give your nose time to adjust. I started growing my collection like into an actual collection, I want to say at the start of the first lockdown in 2020. At that stage, my main fragrance profile, the things I liked, was sweet, kind of rosy, kind of girly, feminine fragrances. That is still my main fragrance profile, but as I've grown my collection, I've smelled new fragrances, I've been introduced to new notes, I've started paying attention to, you know, things that last more on my skin, things that I don't like, things that I absolutely love, and I can say that my nose profile has grown, okay? And a lot of the fragrances that I didn't really like when I first started my journey, I actually really like now, and some I do love. Give your nose some time to adjust, especially if you are just starting out, because your nose can change, your likes and your dislikes can change. And next tip that I want to give you guys, and I think this is one of the most helpful tips, especially if, as I mentioned before, you are already in the progress of growing your collection, you just need a bit of help as to where to find fragrances. Discount sites, okay? Sites that sell discounts on fragrances, sites that have often sales, seasonal sales on fragrances are really good to help grow your collection. I'm gonna list a few sites that I like to use that often have discounted fragrances. They often have sales as well. Believe it or not, if you like a certain fragrance and you feel like the price is a bit hefty, there may be another place where you can get it with a good discount, okay? I'm gonna list a few websites below that I like to use where when I first started growing my collection, I used to use the sites a lot, just to find certain fragrances that I were looking for, but you know, they were a bit expensive in the country I'm in now. But discounted sites are always good. Obviously, if you don't use any of the websites that are listed below and you go and you find a site on your own accord, always look at reviews, okay? Because there are scammers out there, okay? There's people that are just taking people's money and sending out, you know, a bottle of toilet water, okay? But read reviews, Trustpilot, any kind of review website. Type the website in that you found, read the reviews, see if it's legit. If it is, go ahead. And my last tip to you guys, it's such a basic tip, but have fun with the journey. And my last tip to you guys, it's such a basic tip, but have fun with the journey. Have fun with it. I feel like, especially with the growth of social media, a lot of people kind of get stuck in this cycle and this process of, oh, I need to get what this person has mentioned, I need to get what this person has mentioned. Now, I know I said, you know, look at fragrance vlogs, look at fragrance influencers to get inspiration, but you don't need every fragrance. You don't, as much as some people want to convince you that you do, you don't need every fragrance in the world. You really don't, okay? Just have fun with it. Some fragrances, you don't need to get the latest fragrance that's just dropped 2 days ago. You don't need to be on top, unless obviously that's your job. But if you're just starting out your collection, have fun with it. Some fragrances you may not get when it's latest released, but just have fun with it, okay? It's fragrance, girl. Just find a fragrance that you love, find your signature fragrance, and you'll be good. The collection will start to grow from there, because you'll just grow from what you know you like to things that you know you wear when you go on date nights, things that you may wear to go to the gym, things that you wear for more casual settings, things that you wear for more formal settings. Your collection will start to grow from there. Okay, so next few points are gonna be some of my don'ts, okay? Now, I don't really want to say don'ts because, as I said, I don't want to tell anyone what to do with their money, but these are things that I really wish I listened to when starting my collection, okay? Or things that I just want to give as a precaution, you know, if you are growing your collection. So the first point, I kind of mentioned it just now. The first point will be, you don't need to buy, you know, the popular fragrances. A lot of the times, a lot of popular fragrances are just liked because they're liked. And I want to say this without being too shady, but a lot of the popular fragrances are liked just because they're popular and not because people actually like them, okay? I mean, there is going to be a general consensus of people that like them, but a lot of the popular fragrances are liked because they're popular. So with that being said, if it's out of your price range, you don't need it. If you've smelt it and you don't like it, but it's popular, you don't need it because you don't like it. So just, you know, go off your own whims. You don't have to follow the crowd in terms of fragrance. Fragrance with style is very personal. If you like things, you like them. If you don't, you don't. My next point, if it's unaffordable, it's not worth it. And guys, I'm not gonna lie to you, I kind of had an addiction at one point, to the point where I didn't care. I didn't care if the money was there, I wanted this fragrance. But if it's unaffordable, just know it's not worth it. Like, if you don't buy this latest fragrance, you're not gonna die, okay? If you don't buy this fragrance that is completely out of your price range, you will not die. As I mentioned with an earlier tip that I gave, if you can get a sample of that fragrance, do try doing that. I know a lot of the times in fragrance communities such as Fragrancecollection, there are people who may be offering samples or testers of bottles of fragrances that they do have, and I always recommend that, obviously, if you can't get a tester on the fragrance in question. But if it's unaffordable, guys, it's really not worth it. Like, the fragrance community is always dropping something new, always dropping something new. So if you don't get this drop, you may get the next. If you don't get the next, you may get the next. Like, there's always going to be something new to try. And the last point, I don't want to say this is a don't, but this is something to obviously be wary of. Blind buying. Blind buying is cash loss, okay? I'm guilty of a blind buy here and there, especially when I know a trusted nose or a trusted fragrance influencer has recommended something that I know I'll like. I am a blind buyer. But at the end of the day, if you aren't experienced in what kind of fragrances you like, what kind of profiles you like, what kind of notes you like, blind buying can be cash loss, because, you know, you buy the fragrance, you wait for it to come, when it comes, you don't like it, you know. So blind buying can become a cash loss thing, okay? I always recommend, because people, at the end of the day, they're going to do what they want with their money, and blind buying can kind of give you a sense of excitement, so I get it. But if you are growing your collection, I wouldn't recommend blind buying until you know what kind of fragrances you like. When you know what fragrances you like, blind buy away. Blind buy away. But until you know what kind of fragrances you like, I wouldn't recommend blind buying. That's the video today, guys. I hope some of these tips help, and I hope the links below helped as well. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.